Let's talk about Photoshop post-production, namely how we do it in our studio. I'm going to show you a typical interior renderings post-production workflow. And of course, the methods may be a little bit different for everyone, so I'm just going to show you the one we use. So here I have one of our actual designs that we did for our customer. And I'm going to show you how to make a really nice picture out of this render. This render is created in Corona, but actually post-production is the same for both Vray and Corona. There's absolutely no difference here. So I've got some extra masks and render elements ready, and I talked about them in the previous video. I also made a separate mask for the plants, just in case, and also for this table and chairs and lamps here. I also made a separate render element for reflections in case I wanted to highlight some glare or reflections. And I also have a separate ID mask, alpha channel, and wire. All of this is necessary so that we can highlight some elements in case we need to. Next, we can save all of this as files. And of course, you can save it as CXR format and then using clipboard by pressing Ctrl+C, paste edge mask into Photoshop. So I'm going to show you two ways that I use. First, we start Photoshop, and if you already have all of your render elements and layers saved as files, you can just load them into Photoshop with literally 2 clicks. And to do this, you'll go to File tab, then Script, click Load Files into Stack, and click Browse and specify the folder with your renders. Select them all, click OK, and one more time. And now all render elements will be loaded into one file as separate layers. In fact, you don't always need to load all the render elements in Photoshop. So you can just take them from the CXR file or from the frame buffer and then do post-production. So I'll show you the second method as well. So we'll just go back to Corona or to Vray. And now we take Beauty Pass, which is the main render, and just copy it to the clipboard by pressing Ctrl+C. Then we go to Photoshop, press Ctrl+N, create a new file, press Ctrl+V. And see, now I have a basic render, but the windows don't have an alpha channel. So in the tutorials, I've shown you how to set up a background using a plane. But in this case, I'd like to show you how to set up the background using Photoshop. Now, it doesn't make much difference exactly how you're going to do it. Just choose what works best for you. In this case, in this particular design, there's a background. It's reflected in the windows, but it's not visible through these windows. So we're missing some of the possibilities for manipulating it. So I need to load an alpha channel here so that the windows are transparent. And to do that, I'm going to create an adjustment mask for this layer. And now I click this button, and I have a mask now. But for now, it's just a white sheet. So next I need to find the alpha channel. I can go back into 3ds Max, find it, and copy it by pressing Ctrl+C. Then I go back into Photoshop and hold down Alt, click on the mask, and then paste it. And this is what we get. We have a separate mask for the layer. And this is how we're gonna set this whole file. It's called non-destructive post-production. It means that we can change the file at any stage if we need to. I mean, not replace the file itself, but some layers that is rendered here. Okay, so as an example, let's say if you change something in the scene, something like a bed, in that case, we can just put a new layer and everything will be fine. So now I need to set up the background. And to do that, I have this image and I'll press Ctrl A, select it, and then paste it into Photoshop. I'm going to insert it under the interior layer. And now I need to put it correctly on the background so that it's decent in both perspective and lighting. As for perspective, well, as I told you in the background setting up video, the rules are the same, except here we don't see the horizon line, but we can find it quite easily. We take all the perpendicular lines that go to the vanishing point of our image. So that's the top edge of the wall. And I'm going to draw a line like this. Also, we have the carpet here, and I'll draw a line here as well. And the bottom edge of the bed. See, all of these lines converge to one point, and that's where the horizon line is going to be. So I can just create an extra line, and this will be a kind of a reference point for me. And now I can set up background using this, and it will be perfectly set up. However, we have to keep in mind that we have terrain, so the horizon line is going to be a little bit lower. I mean, it would be wrong to set it up like this, because we always have to consider the terrain. So I like the way it is, and now I'm going to remove these lines. I don't need them anymore. Now I just need to lighten this so that we have a balance between the interior and the background. Since the background is darker than the interior, and it should always be lighter on the render, we need to tweak it. So to do this, I'll create a new layer. I'll go to the Layer tab and click New Adjustment Layer. And here I'm going to select Levels. And you can use curves, it doesn't really matter. But I'm going to select Levels. I'm going to hold Alt, and I'm going to select Backgrounds. And now in Levels, I'm going to drag the middle slider here, and I'm going to make this whole image a little bit brighter. I don't really like these dark spots, so maybe I'll rotate the background a little bit so they don't catch my eye too much. Let's go like this. And as you can see, now the background is quite bright and it blends with the lighting inside the interior. So our scene turns out to be more realistic because the background should be a little overexposed. All right, and so now let's move on to a deeper editing. And I'd like to correct the ceiling now because it's concrete. But I'd like to make it look more decorative. A lot of things I'm going to show you are simply examples, like things that you can do if you need to. So I'll go back into 3ds Max, or I can open up just a saved mask layer. And next I select ceiling, I copy and switch back to Photoshop. Then we can do it like this. By the way, that's just the first way to do it. There's also a second way. But let's focus on the first one. So now we're going to go to the channel section and we can create a new channel. And we press the plus button and paste this mask here, and we have it saved. So when I go back to RGB, I'll press Ctrl button and click on this alpha channel. I'll have the ceiling selected, and that's very helpful. This way we can save any selected object in the channels if we need to. And now the second method. So we can just copy our main render layer. So I press Ctrl J and then paste the ceiling mask into the alpha channel mask. And see, this is what we get. And so now, in order to correct this ceiling, I add an adjustment layer. I go to the Layer tab and click New Adjustment Layer. And let it be curves. Select curves, click OK. And now hold down Alt and click on the ceiling layer. Now we can rename this layer to avoid confusion. Because if you open this file a month later, you won't even remember what we did with it. And that way, with the right naming, you'll be able to navigate through all of this. So I've got these curves, and now I want to make them more high contrast. To make some object or layer more high contrast, we just have to create an S-shaped curve. And see, now the ceiling is more decorative. But I want to make it lighter while keeping the contrast. So let's set it up like this. See, now there's some nice highlights from the windows. And we can turn off the adjustment layer, and you can see that the ceiling looks much better now. We can work with other objects the same way, but I want to show you guys another way to work with masks. We have a wire mask, and I've talked a lot about it in previous videos. So let me show you how to use it. So you copy, go back to Photoshop, paste it, and now in order to select something by color, we have to do the following. We'll go to the Select tab and choose Color Range. But know that the layer must be selected. And then, with eyedropper, select this object. Let's say a mirror. And there, you see, it's selected. Next, we turn off the visibility of this layer. And we can, for example, just copy this mirror from the render layer by pressing Ctrl-J. And there we have it. We now have a new layer. So let me tweak it just to show this to you. Let me recolor it. Let's make it cooler or warmer. See, it's the only thing that changes. So we can adjust any object, any paintings, lamps, pillows, anything. We can repaint them, change the contrast. And so that's pretty useful stuff. In some cases, however, wire won't help us because you see the wireframe color of this plant is black. It just bends. It just bends in with the rest. In that case, we need to either re-render this mask or use a separate mask for these objects. But I've made a provision for that. So because plants are most often edited, so here I have separate mask. I copy, go back to channels, and I save this selection like this. Paste it with Ctrl-V, and now go back to RGB. Hold down Ctrl and click on this selection. I can turn off the wire layer. I don't need it. And now I can copy this by simply pressing Ctrl-J. And now I'm going to move these plants up higher. I'm going to rename them. And let's recolor them. But in order to save these changes, I'm going to use an adjustment layer. And again, let's go to the Layer tab and select New Adjustment Layer. And let's take Color Balance, for example. I'm going to hold down Alt and click on the plants. If I don't do that, Color Balance will affect all the layers below. And now let's make them a little bit cooler, for instance, like this. Let's compare what we had to what we've got now. If we don't want any kind of editing for other plants, we can just erase them using Eraser tool. But it's better to just tweak the adjustment mask layer. That's it. I'm going to choose black, go to the Edit Mask section of this adjustment layer, where I set the color. And just like that, I use a black brush to remove the extra color. See, that's how it works. Boom, and it's done. So this is how I adjust different objects. Let me show you the bed as an example. So do I have a mask for it? Yes, here it is. So I go to Select tab, click Color Range, and select it with Eyedropper. We can edit the amount of selection right here. So that's how it's going to be. I've got Windows selected as well. That's not a big deal for now. I'll go back to the base render layer. Press Ctrl J, move it up to the very top, so that adjustment layers won't affect the layer again. And now I need to make this bed more decorative. Create a new adjustment layer. Go to the Layer tab, New Adjustment Layer, and let's select Curves. So for example, I want to have more light in this area, and I don't want more light here. So we can do this. We can just raise the curves, but then we've got the whole image changing. That's because I didn't hold down Alt and click on the layer. So I need to specify which layer this affects first. And see, now only the bed changes. The windows change too, but we'll fix that later. So let's say we're done with that, brighten up the bed, but I don't want this area to be too light. So I'm just going to take the black color again, click Edit Mask, and remove extra lighting here. See, now we have a bed of this sort with colorized lighting. So why did I lose the background? Well, that's because I have copied the window layer with the bed right here. So I just need to erase that like I did before. I'm just going to hold down Alt and click on the eye icon, and let's just increase the brush size and erase extra stuff. Just like that. Now the only thing left is the bed. And like I said, we can enhance some object's reflection. We have a reflection pass for that. I'm going to copy it and paste it by pressing Ctrl V. And let's say I want to have more reflections on the floor. I'll need to use a mask for that as well. I'll take the floor mask from the color wire mask, and I'm going to click Select. Then Color Range, and select the floor. I also have the ceiling here as well. So I'm just going to take the selection tool. I'm going to hold down Alt and deselect extra stuff. Now it's just the floor. Moving to the reflection object, into this layer. And then I just press Select, and I can also activate Inverse. And then just erase extra stuff with Eraser tool. It's a pretty crude kind of way of doing it, but it still works. So I mean, we don't even have to use a mask, or we can just create a new mask. So basically you can do it however you like. So now we're going to move it to the to this layer. First of all, my mask is not working properly here, so I need to invert it. So I'm just going to press Ctrl I, and you see now only the floor selected. To enhance the highlights in just this area, I need to make this layer more decorative. So I can also apply an adjustment layer to it. So go to the Layer tab, the New Adjustment Layer, and choose Curves. And now the curves needs to be lined up like this. And don't forget to hold down Alt and click on the layer to make this work properly. So now we have this light area and everything else is dark. And now we need to change the blending mode correctly. So I'm just setting this layer to screen mode like this. you can see the difference. If I'm not happy with some areas, here for example, they're lighter, I can adjust just the mask with a white brush. The main thing is not to get confused, like I did now. Alright, that's it. We now have highlights on the floor, and we can remove extra with the brush. You can also colorize if necessary, or change in some other way. And so now the final post-production and color correction. So, what can we do here? I have one piece of advice for you. If you feel that you've already a little bit tired and too used to this image, and you don't even see any problems with it, you can just rotate this image by 180 degrees. And this way it'll give you a fresh look. So to do that, we'll go to Image Rotation, and we'll click Flip Canvas Horizontal. We'll flip the image horizontally, and you can see that it looks a little bit fresher now. Now, for the color correction, it's pretty straightforward. We can do it like this. We press Ctrl-Alt-Shift-E. There's 4 buttons at once, and all of our layers merge into one. But all of our adjustment layers stay at the bottom. And now I'm going to apply the camera raw filter to this layer. So what can we do with this image to make it look stunning? Well, the first thing we can do is go to Basic and increase the clarity value. Clarity creates a nice contrast, and it separates light and shadows well. And so next we can just increase the image contrast value to make it look fresher. We can also adjust exposure a little bit if we need to. But I advise you to be careful with this, otherwise you'll get severe exposure. In this case, we don't need that. We can add a bit of detail. So we go to Detail and select what we need. We can increase sharpening value a little bit. And I suggest you do this carefully. Next, in the optics parameter, we can add a bit of vignetting. Let's go like this. And if you need to change some colors, you can go to Color Grading tab or Color Mixer. I prefer Color Mixer, by the way. And here you can choose something. For example, if you want to highlight warmer shades, like orange, then you can adjust it this way. See the table and the light above it? It's gotten a little bit brighter. And now the whole scene looks a bit better. So perhaps you can also adjust the cooler shades here as well. For example, raise the blue and aqua value just a tad bit. And again, it's all optional. We can in fact mute some of the colors. We can take the aqua and blue parameter and set it to 0. You can see the mountains in the background are almost black and white. So this is also a good way that allows you to dim some extra, like extremely bright color. Make it less noticeable. Like this. So that's pretty much it about color correction. In some cases you can do some light shading, like warm or cool. But I like this picture. The light is set up correctly. Just like I showed you in the previous videos, if everything is done correctly, you need minimum Photoshop editing. So now we can rotate this image. And now we have a final image. There's one more thing. There is a downside with this method. So if you have changed something with the image, you will have to do it again in Camera Raw Filter. But you can save it all. So to do that, all you have to do is click right here on these 3 dots icon and click Save Settings. And that's it. You're saving camera raw settings so that you can load them later. The second way is a little bit more complicated. So you select all of your layers, hold down Shift, right click, and click Convert to Smart Object. So your layers become a smart object, and you'll need to apply camera raw to that smart object. But look, if I double click on the smart layer, I have this document open, and everything's moved out a little bit because the background is saved at its original size. In that case, we can just use crop. So we select crop and crop this all to the size of our render. And then you simply press Enter, then Ctrl S, and save the smart layer. Now let's go back to the document. And most likely the crop has moved out here, but that's okay. We can just set it back up again. And then we're going to apply camera raw filter. Let me go ahead and do this. Raise the clarity value. And also add some overall contrast. Just like so. And now we'll apply the filter to the smart object separately. If we want to edit this image, we need to replace some layer. Let's say we double click on the smart layer, change what we need, turn it off, press Ctrl S, and go back to the layer. And there are now changes here. So after that, we apply camera raw again. And that's it. So there you go. So one last thing, a thing that's available in the latest Photoshop versions. It's called Generative Fill. It allows us to remove or add certain things. So let's say we select an object with a frame. For example, this lamp right here. And we have this Generative Fill panel. So I simply click on it and then on the Generate button. And that way, neural network will do the fill and remove that extra object. In some cases, it really helps if you need to make some edits or changes quickly and you don't have a chance to render it yourself. So sometimes this thing allows us to improve something. You see, sometimes neural networks work pretty well. They're not perfect, but let's experiment a little bit with this plant. So I'll select it. And we'll get something like this. Now, of course, neural networks is far from ideal. But still, why not have it as an additional tool? Sometimes it's useful. All right, so looks like that's it. Now let's just save this image to send it to the client. And I recommend using Save for Web. So I press Ctrl-Alt-Shift-S. And Save for Web menu opens up. Here we select JPEG. And then select 100% compression. If you plan to post this image on the website or on social media, you can reduce quality value to 80 and then click Save. And that's it. So I hope you found my videos useful. See you next time. Bye.